Yeah, so I was offered some what to talk about, but hopefully I hit all the points that you guys were hoping that I kind of chat about. Most of you kind of know who I am, but I can start with my family. So I grew up mostly in Mitchell for a time period. I was living in Barrie, so I went to school there for 3 years or something like that, but then came back to Mitchell. We loved it too much, and since then we've been living at the top of the hill there at a golfer's old place, and that's where I spent most of my summers swimming and being an LIT, so as a lifeguard in training there for a couple of years. And yeah, so in my family there's 5 siblings, so I have 2 older sisters, Sylvia and Connie. Myself, I'm the middle child, and I suffer from the middle child syndrome, absolutely. And then I have a younger brother who's a year younger than me, and then I have a younger sister who's 5 years younger. So there's 13 years between the oldest and the youngest. My oldest sister, Sylvia, she's teaching in Stratford, and she has a stepson, O'Day, who's 10. And then a 7-month-old, today actually, Zaid. And you see pictures on Facebook, he's famous for his hair. He's got like the longest, curliest hair, which my brother-in-law has decided to cut actually. So they're not speaking right now. Yeah, he looks like just bangs right here. It's really sad actually.
It will grow back.
Yeah, hopefully.
He will.
She's like, do you realize he's
Not
got
always.
a wedding picture?
No.
So I have O'Day and Zaid, and then Connie has a son. She lives in Kitchener, and Connie has a son, Ethan, who's 7 years old. So I'm a nephew of 3 boys, and it's awesome. Or an aunt, sorry, of 3 boys, and I love being an aunt. It's awesome. It's been lots of fun to see them grow and get to know them and spoil them, and then they leave. So yeah. My brother, he went to Fanshawe, graduated from aircraft technician, I think is the program. So he works at the Stratford Airport, works in the airplanes there, and he's really enjoying it. He's doing his apprenticeship there. So that's what he's doing. And then my younger sister Bernice, she was in Conestoga for a year last year, and she's switching programs, and she's taking public health. I don't think she really knows what she wants to do with that, but that's what she's doing, so that's good. So she just moved in on Friday and had a house party and is living the life of a college student. So, and then my parents are Joyce and Louie. My mom teaches at Stratford Northwestern. She teaches family studies there. And my dad, I never know who he works for, but he's a salesperson, and he works in the agricultural field, so that's all I can really tell you. He could be working for like MI6, I don't really know. But I don't think so. So that's my family. We are all over the place really, but when we're together it's always a lot of fun. When we went to Belgium, that was really great, but we've all lived separately, so us living together for a couple weeks was a little bit challenging, but that was a really good experience to share with them. So yeah, growing up, I lived in Mitchell, and I went to St. Mike's, and then I went to Mitchell for a year actually only. And throughout high school, I worked at Galbraith Optimist Camp for Kids in Milverton area, so that's sponsored through the Optimist, and that was awesome. That was really fun. I did a lot of lifeguarding and counseling there, and that was probably the best summer job ever. Outside all day, running around with kids, and I had an awesome one-piece bathing suit tan. It was great. It was really lots of fun. So, and then that kind of led to my interests of wanting to work with family and children. And so when grade 12 came around, I applied to schools, but I didn't get into the program that I wanted to because my biology mark was too low. So I stayed back and bumped my marks up a bit, and in that time frame I found another program at the University of Guelph called Family and Community Social Services. So I went to the school. It's an affiliate of Guelph, so it's in Toronto, and I went and I fell in love with it. It was a program that was very diverse, and it's because I didn't really know specifically what I wanted to do. I was really excited to get started there. So the University of Guelph Humber offers a degree and diploma in 4 years versus 6. So in those years you do like a lot of college work, and then you do, you know, a lot of essays and the degree stuff. So we had 3 placements in that program, and I did my placement at the Ontario Early Years Centre, which was not really my best interest. I was not interested in it. It was 1 day a week, so for a semester. But my next placement in year 3, I was at the CNIB, which is the Canadian National Institute of the Blind, in Mississauga. And I worked in the volunteer program, so I coordinated volunteers to support individuals who were suffering from or who were blind, and then also did outreach work there. And so it was really cool to discover kind of all the services that they offered and how wide the area they cover. Also learned a lot about devices and all the supports out there, and so that was really, really cool. And my supervisor was really amazing. She was like, pretty well, if this is, get what you want out of it. So if this is what you want to do, we'll get you there and we'll support you. And so she was fantastic. And then in my year 4, we had a full year placement, and that was at Connect Mental Health Services. And that was, I was trying to get there in my 3rd year and I couldn't get there. But anyways, it's a mental health service in Toronto, and I was put in a transitional housing program, and my supervisor, she was there for 15 years. She's been working in the field doing that. And so it's very similar to the work that I'm doing now, where they have housing and you provide intensive case management or supports to people in their house. And that was a phenomenal experience. There's difficult clients who would yell at you and scream at you on the phone, and you have to learn how to deal with that. And you had really good clients that were there that have, you know, done really well over the past 15 years of support, or the past year of the program. So you got to see a lot of different successes. And I worked in different programs, so I was at like CAMH for a bit, which is the Canadian Association of Mental Health, in Toronto, which is the big kind of main spot for people who are suffering with mental health and addictions. Overall, it was just really good. It kind of solidified that I was in the right field. And so that position got me, I think, my job in London. So when I graduated in May of 2015, I got a job in London for a program called London Cares. And so it's kind of it's a program, but it's an organization on its own. So it's funded through the City of London Unity Project, which is a shelter in London, and then actually ADS TV, which is the Addiction Services of Thames Valley. I'm spewing all this stuff at you. Anyways, it's funded through these 4 programs. And it follows the Housing First model, which is kind of the big model that people are following when in the homelessness prevention field, because Housing First means that anyone off the street, if they're suffering from mental health or addictions, don't need to have any prerequisites in dealing with that. They can be actively using or not seeing any mental health supports, and you put them into housing. And by doing that, it's a basic need, right? So someone who's homeless, you give them the basic needs of a roof over their head. Automatically their well-being is supposed to improve, and it reduces the rates of ER visits, and it's less expenses on the system. So that's kind of the idea of Housing First. And so I was a housing case manager there, and I worked with individuals. They've been on our caseload for a while, so I supported them. It was very intense work because some people just never got out of their active addiction, and some people didn't want to deal with their mental health. So it was every day was different. You didn't know what you were getting with each individual. So I think part of that wore on me, but also there was a lot of politics within the organization. There was a lot of changes that were supposed to happen that didn't happen. So I decided to leave London Cares after, I think I was only there for like 11 months. And then I got a job at Choices for Change, which is based out of Stratford, but we cover both Huron and Perth, and we are the addiction agency that supports individuals in Huron and Perth. We support both youth in the schools, adults and family members and caregivers of anyone that's affected by substance use. And so I started that as a contract position doing addiction counseling, which I was super nervous about doing. And it was actually, I really enjoyed it. I really liked doing counseling. I don't know, but I switched because it was a contract position, it was going to end. So I'm now doing housing case management again, which is a lot more challenging in rural places than in London. In London, you have a lot. Landlords are willing to get more apartment buildings. You have more people that are willing to work with you. Here, it's a lot more difficult. People are a little bit more judgmental. So it's challenging to find landlords that are willing to engage in a program because they hear addictions and are like, no. So my caseload's pretty low right now, but it's addiction supportive housing. So I provide it's a program that supports individuals for a year. And they're usually at a point of stability, some stability in their recovery, but they need housing. So they may be homeless, or they may be facing eviction, or they may be living in a really unsafe environment. And so we'll put them into a unit, a subsidized unit for a year, and I provide intensive supports with them. So getting them integrated back in the community, teaching them life skills, helping them get more connected in the community. So that's what I do now. And then a couple weeks ago I mentioned the needle syringe program, so I also do that. So the needle syringe program offers harm reduction, so clean needles and waters and Band-Aids and anything that people need to be able to use clean so that they don't get infections or prevents against HIV and AIDS and things like that. So we offer that in Goderich every Tuesday and Thursday nights. So people come in. We provide them with gear, we connect them to any services that they might need, encourage them to use food bank or anything like that, and then they go off on their way. And they also return their needles to us as well, so that they get safe places to dispose of them. And it's really needed in our community, but a lot of people don't know that we have it. So that's kind of my work life. Personally, for fun right now, I did gardening this year, which has been really soothing, actually. With all the stress at work, I really enjoy the gardening piece. And then this year I played soccer, which was also really great. I hope that next year Liverpool does it again because it was lots of fun. Most of my time is consumed by wedding planning, which has been really, really good. So I'm getting married on October 21st of this year to Garnet Drummond. And so, I'm very excited about that. He's been a really good support for me with work and helping me kind of de-stress sometimes and to bounce off my rage when the client misses an appointment or whatever. So he's been a really good support. So I'm very excited to get married to him. And I think we're at like 46 days or 45 days or something. So that's kind of. I guess.
Don't we need someone to do bingo that night?
Yeah, and I guess I thought I'd add at the end, like, kind of my reason for joining the Rotary was originally, like, I was going to register or sign up to go on the exchange, but it didn't work out. So we ended up hosting students. So we hosted Jogo, and then we hosted Raul. Yeah, and then I think that might have been it, because at that point in time, my parents were empty nesters. So. But it was just really cool to get to know them and to see what kind of supports that they have and how well they get to know the family, and that was just really cool. So eventually I'd like to host, the students as they come in, and also with moving, I don't know, we weren't very involved in the community, like sports I was, but I've always personally liked to get involved, and now that I know that I'm going to be settling in Cromarty Mitchell area, I thought that it'd be, and Emily helped out with that, but it'd be nice to get involved and give back, and so I'm excited to learn, attend the Rural Urban Night, and knowing, speaking with Elizabeth, it's just cool to see how many services and programs we offer for people, so yeah, I'm excited.
So how do you, Kelly, how do you integrate, or how do you bring a program like that to Mitchell? Like, is it?
We do support individuals in Mitchell, so like, we have a counselor that I think she works at the town hall, so people who want like addiction support counseling that way. If they want housing in Mitchell, we would provide them housing, but most people wanna move to an area like Stratford or Goderich, because there's just more services
But where do they
there.
go? So in the, we're involved with the food bank, and they kind of, people will gravitate there or go to one of the ministers to kind of ask for help. How do people find help in Mitchell through addiction? Is there, they must need to want help.
Part of it is, yeah. Like if you want to get connected to a program, you have to do, it's a self-referral, so they will have to call themselves.
Okay.
And they call, and then they'll say, this is my issue, this is my availability, this is where I live or work. And we do have a counselor every Thursday that's in Mitchell. So they would just call. Really what we probably should do is be better at putting our brochures in more open places. And that's something good to know about, because I don't know if there's any like brochures in the food bank. Like that'd be something to look into. But it is hard. People just like don't really know that we're out there. But primarily it's counseling. Like I think, right? So they would just call and then they'd get connected with the counselor, and then they kind of go from there. And if there were other programs that they'd be interested in doing, we can connect them that way, because we have a couple other programs that, depending on their needs, that they could be connected to. So that's how they get connected to my program, is they meet with a counselor and they recognize this is what's going on, and they kind of complete some goals so that I know what I'd be working on, and then they get referred to my program.
So after the year is up, what happens? They're outside the system again then? Can
Yeah,
they
a lot of
reapply,
them
or-
actually take over the unit, so they have a good enough relationship with the landlord's willing to take them on, and they have to pay market rent, which is getting higher and higher, so that's a little bit challenging for them. But yeah, most of them they are successful in the program, and they take over the unit, so
And the age range, is it,
they have to be 16 and over.
and what's the oldest you've dealt with?
In this program,
Is it usually younger?
no, 62.
Oh, so
Yeah,
young
62.
person.
Yeah. yeah. But the challenging thing is in London I was dealing with a lot of people who were homeless for many, many years, so that takes a lot out of them, right? And then you have active addiction, and then that takes a lot out of them. So they're 54 years old and can't walk and can't take care of themselves, but they're too young for any services. So there's this that was probably the biggest challenge, was there's a gap in services for certain individuals.
Was the
so.
addiction bringing them into a lifestyle, or is there,
No, I think it's just both.
it's just a bit of,
Yeah. So addiction, when I was in school, I'm like, I never want to work in addictions, like ever. And it's been really eye-opening for sure. The mental health piece is more where I'm interested. But that tends to come out after a couple months once they get into their house and they get settled. Then it's like, okay, my anxiety, or okay, this trauma, or okay, I'm dealing with depression. And then that's when you start to help them with kind of their mental health piece. So it's a little bit of both at the beginning, which can be challenging. But in our area, there's a lot of judgment. So like obviously there's high crimes and there's a lot of use, and that's related, right? Those are correlated. But if people were to have a little bit more like services and a little bit more understanding per se, then like they might be more willing to get some help. But I don't know, it's hard. I'm still like, I don't know. I guess Mitchell, I live in Mitchell, so I don't pay much attention to it, because then I'd be like, oh God.
yeah.
But
Yeah,
in other
you may
areas,
be
like it's,
careful where you-
yeah.
Are the big cities more forgiving in that sense? More accepted?
London's worked really, really hard on, like, they want to have a safe needle injection site. So they worked really, really hard. They've got a very strong, like, homelessness prevention team in London. So I would say yes, it was really cool, because we worked with police officers, so you had police, but there's always going to be gaps in services or individuals that just are going to not understand. But the reality is addiction or mental health affects like a lot of people in our community. So it's just how best can we serve people, I guess, right? But it ultimately comes down to they need to want the supports. So otherwise you're just chasing around.
So is the goal to get them off the addiction then? Is this what you're wanting, or you're supporting them through this?
For the most, like, it's difficult, because I would say for alcohol, most people are abstinent based, so they want to be, they won't use. But then when people are using other substances, they think that they can moderate it, and I think that's just because the addiction and the lifestyle is like so strong. So, yeah, it's hard, but for the most part, it's abstinence, I would say, at the beginning. Like, I learned a lot about harm reduction, so in London, and that's kind of where the basis of my addiction, like, knowledge comes from, is from London. So in terms of harm reduction, that just means people using in a safer way, reducing harm. And so I take that stance with a lot of people, but it doesn't necessarily work for all. So yeah, but alcohol, tobacco, and marijuana are the #1 substances still in our area that are being used. Fun fact, if you wanted to know, is meth seems to be very loud, and it is. So that's that would be the one where most people need to be abstinent. Like, they really can't function in our program because they're just all over the place. So there's really, like, if you come into our program, you need to be sober from meth, I would say. That's a new finding that I found, that I kicked someone out of the program. So yeah. So it has its ups and downs. I mean, like, you have to advocate for the client, you have to advocate with the landlord, you have to know a lot of stuff like that, but so it can be quite draining when you're dealing with a lot of judgment. But the reward is that, like, I have a client who's going back to school, and he's 7-8 months in the program, and he's going to social services because he just feels that that's where he fits in, and he's volunteering. And another guy has his daughter back, and he has her every morning and every evening. Like, just the successes are really important as well. And I mean, the program's not for everyone.
Kelly?
Yeah.
Our anti-meth program that we do for the grade 5s, what can we do better with that program to get the information out to the kids? Any suggestions there? Or?
I don't
Are
know,
we on the
so
right
I
track,
haven't seen like the presentation, so I'm not sure, but I think it's just, no, like, I think, I don't know if it's part of the conversation, but to make sure that you, like, are getting help or asking for help is, like, key at the very beginning, so not to be like that shame or hide kind of if addiction is something that you see, if they're willing to get help or tell someone that would be an important part of it. So that they know, because if there's someone that they're concerned about, you know, growing up, or they see someone starting to, that they are more comfortable with having that conversation. But I think it's a great program because it's a good age for them to understand what's going on, and then the message, I don't know.
We kind of work together. We try and work on prevention, and you work on what happens after you've made that decision.
Yeah,
So
exactly.
we'd love to have you come to a presentation at the school once we
Yeah.
get fired up.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I think you'd appreciate it.
Okay.
yeah,
Well,
absolutely.
time is running out, so I guess, thanks Kelly, you did an excellent job, and we support you in your endeavors to carry on, because it's not for everybody, the job you're doing.